If I sound exasperated, I am. And I'm exasperated because these issues are really important for children and for the economy and for the culture at large. And it is important that politicians say they understand these things, but it's more important they do something about it. Because these issues aren't, let's say, at the margins. And the frustration often is that successive policies in different fields end up referring to developments which the arts help to promote, but which they don't now because they've been so severely compromised by other policies. So, for example, the government's just committed in the UK to a £52 million programme to improve speech and communication skills. These are the very things that we argued 4 years ago at the heart of drama programmes and theatre programmes. You strip those things out of school and you start having communication problems, which you then spend £52 million trying to remedy. So I'm arguing for joined up thinking, really, and for the arts to be seen at the centre of things. But I also just want to say here that we need to understand the scale of the problem. This isn't a party political problem. It isn't one that some governments get and some don't. To me, it's a deep-seated ideological issue. And we need to understand that if we're not to be meeting, or at least our grandchildren are to be meeting 30 years from now talking about these things. The issue to me is right at the heart of the conception of public education. There are two issues. The first is that public education was conceived and introduced really in the 19th century to meet the needs of industrialism. And that created a hierarchy of utility in the school curriculum. But the culture of education, the intellectual culture, owes more to the Enlightenment framework of the 18th century, the framework of intellectual inquiry, which was rooted in that huge revolution in philosophy and in science. That whole project really emphasised a certain way of thinking, what we think of as academic work. And the result of that is we've built an education system which is riven right down the middle between the arts and sciences on the one hand and between what we think of, or what is thought of as academic ability on the one hand and vocational or practical courses on the other. And that's the heart of our problem. If you build an education system on a series of fault lines and dichotomies, it will begin to fracture under stress. And that's what's going on. So we need to reconnect some of these ideas. We need to reunify education. And that means not reforming it, but transforming it. And at the heart of that has to be a recognition that education is a personal process. It doesn't work if kids aren't engaged. It's a process that has to be customised to local circumstances, and that means giving schools the freedom to develop their own culture within the framework of national standards. And it has to be sensitive to individual differences and to cultural diversity. Now, the arts are central to all of that. But we're not talking about any arts projects. They have to be good arts projects. There's no point arguing for bad stuff. We need great arts projects. And that to me means we have to train people differently. One of the effects of the national curriculum has been to strip the arts out of teacher training. I used to work in teacher training at Warwick University in the 90s. And we argued then when the national curriculum came in, you're creating a legacy here which will deprive generations of teachers of these experiences. So we've got a job here to do. And that means, I think, connecting strategically and professionally, teaching, the training of artists, schools with cultural organisations, and the broad range of opportunities in broadcasting and in the media more generally. We need to really reconstruct education to transform it, but do it at a local level within the framework of national standards and national criteria. So I think this is an historic job. I love the manifesto for children's arts. I read it carefully, and I really believe that in it are the seeds of a transformational system of education. But these are planted in soil which is rife with other seeds, and the roots of these arguments run very deep. These aren't new ideas, these are ancient ideas, but they have a new urgency in the 21st century. So I commend Action for Children's Arts for putting the manifesto together, you for being there today, and successive governments for saying, as they often do, how important these things are. But we have to hold people to account now and recognise that the arts aren't some sectional or elitist activity which appeal to a few. They speak to the very nature of humanity, to our imaginative capacities, to our compassion, to our desire and compunction for aesthetic experiences and for communing with other people. That's how the arts come about, and it's what they speak to. The Manifesto for Children's Arts isn't about the art, it's about children and their capacity and their potential. And to that extent, they're about the present and they're about the future. And it's a future we have to work for so we don't repeat these endless conversations as we've done in the past. And I offer you my congratulations for being there today, my full support for what you're trying to do, and my earnest hope that we move this agenda forward properly in the future. Thank you.